Hello and welcome to Called Bank Sports. Tonight, the Utah Jazz dropped a close one to the Miami Heat. We're going to get down into that. You can leave a like. We'll get started here in a second. So, tonight was a rough game. Jazz had the lead at points, and there were definitely times when they were, doing pretty well. But for the most part, Miami was just much better than Utah, and you're going to drop games. Now, we're not used to it since, when you've only dropped 2 games after the first 8 games of the year, losses start feeling a bit more painful. But it is nice to see the Jazz not do what they did in the first couple games of the year, where they just really got down on themselves and seemed to let the other team control the scenario. And yeah, they did have close games against Oklahoma City and against Minnesota to start off the year. But just the vibe I've got with this team is really different just on the level of fight that they have. So this is the first game that the Jazz have lost since they beat the Miami Bucks for the first time, where it was a close game. And I don't believe that Miami ever led by double figures. So that's something the Jazz just haven't had this year. They've won a couple close games, but overall they've won and destroyed. I believe they've had 20 games this year where they've led by 20 plus points at one point or another during the matchup. That's absolutely insane. So I'm going to dive here into the box score, and if you can leave any comments you have in the chat, that would be awesome, and we can see how long we can get this stream to go tonight. So, not surprisingly, pretty much every player is in the minus. You do have Joe Ingles, they provided some solid minutes off the bench, and really the players who just kind of laid an egg tonight were Bojan, who did have 17 points, which it's nice to see from him, but he was minus 14, and Jordan Clarkson, who was minus 12. Clarkson's other game against the Heat this year was not that good. So Miami has been a top 5 defense these past 10 games that they've played. And and they're just a really great and solid defensive team. So looking at it, like, this is going to happen sometimes. And when you play a basketball mind like Spoelstra, it's going to be hard, especially when you have players on the Heat. Like, let's see, who's the biggest one? So Dragic off the bench hasn't really played a lot this year. This is his second game back from injury, and he put up 26 points at plus 11. And when you lose by 8 points, I mean, that's the game right there. Just having somebody who hasn't really played coming out and exposing you like that. So the Heat, yeah, they might be below 500. They're 16 wins, 17 losses on the year right now, but they're going to come back, and they're going to be a formidable opponent to play in the playoffs. That they might end up in the play-in games, but if you're Brooklyn or Philadelphia or Milwaukee, you don't want to see the Heat in the first round of the playoffs or even the second round. So they've had plenty of COVID issues that have really hurt them and just made it take almost the first half of the season for them to get in their groove. But as long as they stay healthy, they're going to be, firing on all cylinders this second half of the season. So I'm really excited to see what they do. And obviously I would have preferred to see a Jazz win tonight, but it happens, and the Jazz aren't letting it happen a lot. And that's what's really big, and what is just really helping me be so excited this season, is that the Jazz aren't just rolling over and absolutely just giving away so many games. Like the last few seasons, what they've done to have high records is beat the below 500 teams, but then, lose to a lot of the above 500 teams, who are the teams you end up playing in the playoffs. And this year, while they've really only played 1 or 2 playoff teams at full strength, they've been winning those games. So there's definitely just a mental mindset that they've been able to get. And I wonder how much of that has to do with losing to the Denver Nuggets in the first round. And if they win that and then they lose in the second round to the Clippers, because who really would have expected them to beat them? If they just don't come back with the vengeance that they've come back with this year. So I'm disappointed with the win. I'm happy with how the Jazz played, and I think that one of the biggest things is when you look at it, the Jazz only shot 32.6% from 3-point range, which you'd like to say is a fluke. I'd say it's not exactly a fluke when your worst game from the 3-point land this year was also against the Miami Heat, even if you ended up winning. So today the Jazz weren't able to shoot well from behind the arc and didn't shoot well inside the paint. They weren't able to get those shots. They did have a monster night from the free throw line, going 21 for 23. Only person with misses was Donovan. Gobert hit all of his. He had at least 5. Let's see, how many did Gobert have? Gobert was 7 for 7 from the free throw line. I believe that puts him at 80% over the last however many games. I'd have to go look at that. But if he's able to keep this up, and if this isn't just a little hot streak that he has, Gobert shooting 80% from the line automatically becomes just a much bigger threat for Utah, which would just be mind-boggling. It makes you feel a lot more comfortable getting him the ball inside, because even if he doesn't score, if he gets fouled, which happens semi-frequently, you're expecting him to make most of his shots from the stripe. And that would just be a great bolster to Rudy Gobert's game and pushing him to just even another level of all-star. So 538 right now. Let's make sure they've updated it after the loss. They have. So they still put the Jazz based on their Raptor player rating. They're still have the best current rating in the NBA at just below 700, 1699. And they have the best full strength rating. So Utah really is just dominating from a statistical category right now. That's mind-boggling. Projected record is 55-17, 6 games over the Clippers. So Utah is just walking away with possibly the best record in the NBA, and their second half schedule is one of the easiest in the league. And the most interesting thing to me, and there's been a shift, the Jazz have the best chance in the Western Conference of making the finals right now with 31%. Lots of years, 538 has liked the Utah Jazz, and then the Utah Jazz drop games that they should have won, and it just doesn't work out. And so while 538 did have Utah winning tonight, the fact that they've been pulling off these games that, you know, they're like, oh, Jazz are a good team, but they're going to drop them, has catapulted them to being, honestly, the best team in the NBA right now. Am I still really disappointed that we weren't able to play the Lakers with Schroeder and AD? Yes. And do I want to see some full strength matchups? Yeah, I don't want to see the Celtics again without Marcus Smart. And I don't want to see, well, we're not seeing the Bucks again, but I don't want to see the Bucks shorthanded again. So we really just need these teams to be at full strength for us to really just get more close games like we had tonight. Prepare ourselves for the playoffs, when the Jazz are going to be in like just tight games the whole stretch, and just see what the Jazz can do there, since they have dropped some close games and they've won some close games. Like the game against the Nuggets this year, the first one was a close game that the Jazz pulled out. So I'm excited to see where the Jazz go, and I am hoping in the second half to get some more close games just to prepare the Jazz for the finals. Since you're not, not the finals, fingers crossed, prepare them for the finals, but prepare them for the playoffs. So overall, just back to this box score really quick for just one more stat. What cost the Jazz the game tonight is Miami had 50 rebounds to Utah's 36. I would need to go back and watch some more video to see what was happening there. But man, like, they only had 2 more offensive boards than the Jazz, and the Jazz this game just didn't work out for the Jazz tonight, and that's going to happen sometimes. And they lost to a good team tonight. So I'm not the happiest about it, but this isn't doom and gloom, and it will take a lot for me to feel doom and gloom. So if you guys can leave a like, I'm going to get to the chat here in a second, and let's just do more of a deep dive on the Jazz and the game tonight and where we think they're going from here. Papa Dupe says you guys are cool. Thank you so much. We're just working hard to bring consistent Jazz content, and we're super happy for everyone who's helping us do that. So we had a tough game from three for most of it, and the Heat had a good game. Yeah, they shot 14 for 30 from behind the line. I can't remember where the Heat fall in three-point shooting, but hitting that many of them on so few attempts, not going to happen that often. And the Jazz are one of the best teams at denying the three. So overall, just an off night for Utah where they were still in the game against a really good team. So can't be too sad about it. Tough loss. Miami is playing really well right now. What do you think the Jazz weakest spots were? Rebounding. And again, like, I listened to most of the game. So I don't really have a visualization of what happened. But if we go look specifically at the rebounds, Gobert got 12, so he was able to get his double-double like normal. But when you look at it, O'Neal only had 4, and he's averaging about 8. Bojan had 2. Conley had 2. Mitchell had a bit more than his average, I believe, at 6. But you have Butler and Adebayo in double digits on the boards. Nunn was the starter with the least amount of rebounds with 4. And you got 5, 4, 3, and 2 from the bench. So Jazz just were missing shots and weren't getting the offensive boards like they typically do. I believe they're the 4th best team in the league at doing it. So just weren't able to get the ball moving like they were. And I believe just from what David Locke was saying, they were able to get into the paint, but Bam was doing a good job defending. And with how the Heat were playing, they weren't able to kick it out like normal. So the Heat really stifled their ball movement, which is what makes the Jazz the amazing team from three-point range that they are, is being able to move the ball and pass it like no other team in the NBA does. So you're going to have games like tonight, and tonight that was just how the game went. Still 3 games in front of the West. Yeah. And I think it's hilarious when looking at it. The biggest concern right now for a Jazz fan isn't getting the 1 seed, because that seems like inevitable, like it's going to happen. The biggest concern right now is if the Lakers fall to the 4 seed, which is what 538 has them doing, and we have to play them in the second round, which would honestly make getting the 1 seed almost just trivial. I'd rather drop to the 2 and have the Clippers get the 1 if it involved us not having to play an LA team until the Western Conference Finals. I mean, I want the home court, but I don't want to have to. I just feel like the Jazz have an awesome chance to make it to the finals this year. And the lowest chance of them making it is if they have to go through both LA teams, because they're both just that good, and having them beat up on each other before you play them is definitely preferred to having to play them in back-to-back rounds. So we'll see what happens there, but I don't think the Lakers are going to drop off as much as people think they are, but it could happen. Like if AD is going to sit out as long as is projected because they don't want to risk him getting hurt, that's definitely a possibility. Carter said, headline, Mitchell 30 points, but Butler 32 points. Yeah, Mitchell, put up a lot of points tonight. He was 6 for 8 from the line, 2 for 9 from 3-point range, and 11 for 26 from the field. So when you look at what he shot on 2-pointers, let me do the math really quick. You have 9 for 15. So over 50%, respectable right there. Wish he would have hit a couple more threes. He would have had to make 1 or 2 more. And if those fall, and if Conley hits 1 more, and if Clarkson doesn't go 3 for 12, it's a Jazz win. So not sure how many of those were just solid defense from the Heat or just an off night. But like I said earlier, you don't have 2 of your worst nights against the same team and call it a fluke. Even if it looks like the Jazz are getting open looks, I just don't think it's a coincidence that it was against the Heat both times that they struggled. And there's other things defensively that the Heat were probably doing to just take the Jazz out of rhythm in such a way that made it harder for them to get to their 37-38% minimum that they want on any given night. Sawyer Parker said that he's sad. I agree with you. Just disappointing game overall, but it could have been worse. And thankfully, the Jazz were in it and fought hard. So, Sawyer also said 51% from three for the Heat. I mean, that's what's happened in the Jazz loss. Is the other team has just shot amazing from three, and it's not happening most nights. So it's just going to happen sometimes, and you want to look and learn from it and see what the Jazz can do defensively. But just because you lose a game doesn't mean that you did things wrong. I mean, there's a reason that the Golden State Warriors didn't go, that they went 73-9 and not 82-0. Because even though they were the best team, like, other teams are going to have good nights. And that's what happened 9 times against them. And then there were other times where teams had great nights and the Golden State Warriors just had better nights that year. Why did someone say Dale was boring on Wednesday? I don't find him boring. I mean, we're both getting used to it, like just trying to bring some more high energy and personality. So Dale and I have been friends since 6th grade. So I by no means find him boring, but everyone has their own tastes. And like, sometimes you're going to hop on something and you might just find us for the wrong 30 seconds. And fingers crossed that doesn't happen. We want to pull you guys in and keep you here just so we can all keep having great discussions like this. But like, stuff happens and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So, Carter, you're not bothering me with comments. Like, thank you so much for just being here and being here every night. Like, we love everyone who watches, and the guys who are here, and the guys and gals, and just the individuals who are here every stream is just super great. Like, we're so happy about where this channel is going. So if you can leave a like, that would be awesome. And just to everyone, and if you can leave a sub, like, we're going to keep bringing you these post-game reactions every game, and it's going to be an awesome playoffs this year. So, like, join us and just come along for the ride. Carter asked how I'm doing. I'm doing good. It's been a long week, so I'm happy it was a 6 p.m. tip tonight, so that I'm not going to be up till midnight. But it's definitely worth being up till midnight when we have just awesome streams like this. So, Jazz 4 gets swept in Western Conference Finals, calling sweeps whoever, sealing sweeps whoever we play in the finals. Oh, I would believe that. My only caveat here is if we end up playing a Los Angeles team in the Western Conference semis, that gets scary for me. So I would put the floor as losing in 6 in the Western Conference semis. But of course, I feel like whenever we talk about floors, we're assuming that we don't lose Gobert or Mitchell or Conley or Clarkson or one of those players to a season-ending injury. Since if we lose Gobert to a season-ending injury, my floor is a loss in the first round, because Gobert is just that vital to the team. And I love Doak and I love his potential, but we don't have a center that we can bring in to, like, Favors isn't a healthy enough guy to come in and pick up 30 plus minutes. And we don't have a center to come in and play another 18 minutes that would keep us at the level we're at and keep us in contention. I don't really know if there's anyone the Jazz could pick up before the deadline or off of waivers, but I think that would be where I was looking at the most for just getting one more guy to take Shaq Harrison's spot that's been opened up on the roster now. But we're going to see what happens. Another place would be getting some more depth at the 4. Oni's awesome, but again, like, if you would get someone with a bit more experience than Oni, that would be better for the Jazz. But you're not going to go find 4 who can shoot the 3 and be a lockdown defender, because if you can do that, like, at the very minimum, you're being considered an all-star snub right now. So it'll be really interesting to see, like, what they do before the deadline, but not entirely sure what's gonna go on right now. So I have a feeling this stream isn't gonna last too long. No, this one isn't gonna last too long. Streams definitely last longer on later games and wins. So we're super stoked to be up to 400 plus subs. the Jazz winning has definitely helped. The market for Jazz YouTube content definitely goes based on wins and losses. So fingers crossed that they pull off a win tomorrow night against the Orlando Magic. And we can do a bit of a preview for that. I'm not super prepared if you guys want, but I think that tomorrow night could really be a trap game. The Jazz had to play a full 48 minutes tonight. It was close. They weren't able to they didn't get a win, and I've said it before and I will continue to say it as long as I'm on this channel. A win takes less energy than a loss. Like, there's just something, and I'm sure you could ask the players about it, that just takes it out of you a bit more if all the effort you put in more or less went to waste. Since Donovan had a great night tonight, and that's great for his personal statistics, but it's not good for the team, really, because you lost. So losing tonight and then having to fly to Orlando and take a look at that. So I'm going to pull up the schedule. I can't remember. I hope if it's a later game or if it's it's another 6 p.m. game tomorrow. So they'll have about 20 hours. Hope they'll be able to hopefully get to bed at a decent time tonight. And I know that's one thing that the players enjoyed in the bubble, was having a schedule and not being traveling all the time. But Magic could be a trap game. ESPN gives the Jazz a 77.6% chance of winning. So I do think we'll win, but it could be closer than expected just because back end of a back-to-back away. And, this was a tough game tonight. The Jazz had to expend a lot of energy. What is Carter's CDC's commenting on Carter's profile picture, but I can't actually see that. It's too small on my screen. So, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. If you can leave a like before we end, if the chat starts going here in a second, I'll keep it going. But thanks again for everyone tuning in. We really appreciate it. And me and Dale will be releasing our weekly podcast tomorrow, and we'll also be I'll be live again probably around 8:39 p.m. after the Jazz Orlando game. So thanks so much for tuning in, and go Utah.